Men, listen closely. For centuries, rulers have lost kingdoms, not because of their enemies, but because they miscalculated those closest to them. You see, living with a woman is no different than ruling a small state. It requires wisdom, foresight, and the strength to command without cruelty. Today, we confront the silent question that destroys peace in many homes. Why do men fail when they live with women? And how can you avoid their mistakes? If you have ever felt misunderstood, tested, or stripped of your authority inside your own walls, then what I reveal here may change everything. Before a man chooses to live with a woman, he must understand one principle that governs all human affairs. The one who sets the frame rules the game, you see. When a ruler enters a foreign land, he does not arrive as a guest hoping to be accepted. He arrives with terms, with standards, and with the authority of his position. If he arrives uncertain, asking permission, he becomes a servant instead of a sovereign. The same law applies when a man joins his life with a woman under the same roof. If you enter her world without defining your expectations, your principles, and the boundaries of how the home will operate, you have already surrendered before the first battle has even begun. And believe me, life together is full of battles, not wars of swords and shields, but wars of influence, of habits, of who decides and who obeys. Men often make a fatal mistake. They think that love is enough, that chemistry and affection will carry the weight of daily life. They forget that passion fades, but structure endures. And when there is no structure, when there is no frame, the relationship will not flow toward order. It will drift toward chaos. Chaos always consumes the weak man first. Control of the frame means you are the one who defines what is acceptable and what is not. It means you decide how respect is maintained, how decisions are made, and how conflict is handled. If you do not establish this early, she will establish it for you. And once her frame dominates the household, you will find yourself negotiating your very dignity for small moments of peace. Consider how rulers lose kingdoms. Rarely is it because of invasion. More often, it is because they allowed their advisors, their soldiers, even their lovers to dictate terms to them, until they became rulers in name only. What is a king who is ignored in his own castle? What is a man who is silenced in his own home? Both are figures without substance, present but powerless. Now, do not mistake me. To control the frame is not to dominate through cruelty, nor to bark orders like a tyrant. Tyranny is fragile. It lasts only until rebellion grows strong enough to burn it down. True authority is quieter, steadier, more enduring. It is established through consistency of action, through calm command, through the certainty that you will not bend when it comes to your principles. Imagine this: you move in with a woman, and on the very first conflict, perhaps something as small as how money is spent or how time is divided, you avoid the argument, you retreat, you give in for the sake of peace. You may think you are preserving love, but what you are really doing is announcing that you will bend whenever pressed. And from that moment, she will test more, she will push more, and she will respect you less. A man who controls the frame does not avoid conflict, he manages it. He speaks clearly, with patience, with firmness. He sets the tone before matters escalate. He does not allow small concessions to become the law of the land. In this way, the frame remains his, and the relationship flows within his terms rather than against them. Understand this truth: women are not drawn to men who simply agree, who melt into their world without resistance. They may tolerate such men, they may even use such men, but they will never truly respect them. Respect is born from strength, from the man who enters with his standards and holds them no matter what winds blow against him. Think of the fortress. Before enemies arrive, the walls are built, the gates are fortified, the guards are stationed. A wise ruler does not wait until the attack to decide how his castle should be defended. Likewise, a wise man does not wait until arguments erupt, until disrespect appears, until his authority is tested, to suddenly decide what he believes in. The time to set the frame is before he enters, not after. This is why so many men find themselves broken inside their own homes. They entered thinking love was enough. They entered thinking that compromise would maintain harmony. And slowly, without realizing it, they surrendered every piece of ground. First, how decisions are made, how time is used, then how money is spent, then finally how respect is given. By the end, they are rulers of nothing, kings without crowns, men who beg for scraps of peace in the very place that was supposed to be their fortress. If you wish to live with a woman and keep your strength intact, do not step into her world as a guest hoping to please. Step into the shared home as a man who already knows the terms by which he will live. For the man who owns the frame never loses himself, no matter who lives beside him. Men often confuse noise with power. They believe that raising their voice, thundering in anger, or drowning a room in shouting somehow secures their authority. But authority that depends on loudness is as fragile as glass, for once the noise fades, the silence exposes the emptiness behind it. True power, the kind that lasts inside a home, is found in consistency. A woman does not measure you by how loud you can argue, but by how unwavering you remain when you are tested. Loudness is the weapon of the desperate. Consistency is the armor of the strong. Think of the ruler who panics at the first sign of rebellion. He screams at his soldiers, lashes at his servants, and demands loyalty through fear. For a moment, kingdom trembles. But when the noise subsides, the people remember his instability, and their loyalty begins to rot. Now consider the ruler who governs with calm, who enforces his laws not through rage but through certainty. His people obey, not because they are terrified of his outbursts, but because they know his word does not bend. Which king would you rather be? In the home, this law is no different. When a man shouts, he shows that he has lost control of himself, and a man who cannot control himself cannot control his house. A woman may submit in the moment, silenced by his volume, but inside her heart she marks him as weak, for he rules with chaos, not with mastery. But the man who is consistent, who speaks once and enforces what he says every time, commands respect without ever needing to raise his voice. Understand this well, women are creatures of testing. Not out of malice, but out of instinct. They press against your frame, they push against your rules, to see if you are truly what you claim to be. If you respond to every test with rage, you show her that your strength is only a mask. But if you respond with calm repetition, with firmness that does not waver, you prove that your strength is real. Imagine a river carving its path through stone. The river does not roar in fury, it does not thrash about in wild noise. It flows steadily, relentlessly, and over time even the hardest rock bends to its will. That is consistency. That is power. The loud storm makes a spectacle but passes quickly. The steady current shapes the land forever. In daily life, consistency means your words match your actions, and your actions match your principles. If you say you will not tolerate disrespect, then you enforce it quietly, every single time, without exception. If you claim discipline, then you live by discipline yourself, not only when it is convenient, but especially when it is difficult. Nothing destroys a man's authority faster than hypocrisy. When his voice thunders commands that his own behavior betrays. Women notice every inconsistency. You may think it's small, that one broken promise, that one standard you abandoned because you were tired, that one exception you allowed because you wanted peace. Every small fracture is remembered. And once remembered, it is tested again. The test repeats, and if you bend again, she learns the truth. You are not steady, you are not consistent, you are only a man of moods. And here lies the danger. A man of moods becomes a man of weakness. One day he is strong, the next he is soft. One day he enforces his rules, the next he excuses himself. To live with such a man is to live with uncertainty, and women despise uncertainty. They may forgive mistakes, they cannot respect inconsistency. Consistency is also silence when needed. You do not need to answer every provocation. You do not need to win every argument with volume. Sometimes silence is the loudest statement a man can make. For silence, when backed by consistency of action, speaks far greater than noise. It shows that your strength is internal, not dependent on her reactions, not dependent on her approval. If you raise your voice, let it be rare, let it be the exception. For then, when you do speak with force, the impact will strike deeper, because it is unexpected. But if every word you utter is drowned in volume, you become background noise, predictable, exhausting, and powerless. So remember this: the measure of a man is not how he explodes in anger, but how he stands firm in stillness. Women test men to see if their word is iron or paper. Leadness may frighten for a moment, but consistency builds a foundation that cannot be shaken. Men often believe that to keep a woman close, they must give her everything. They flood her with constant affection, endless reassurance, and unbroken attention, thinking this devotion will bind her forever. But here lies one of the greatest errors a man can make. For just as too much water drowns the fire, too much affection suffocates desire. Machiavelli taught that a ruler must be both loved and feared. Love without fear makes him weak. Fear without love makes him hated. Only the balance of both secures loyalty. The same principle holds true in the private kingdom of a home. A woman must feel your warmth, yes, but she must also feel that you are not fully possessed, that there remains a part of you she cannot control. Without this balance, her admiration withers. Observe what happens to men who surrender themselves entirely. At first, their constant affection is welcomed, but soon it begins to lose value. The endless supply of attention becomes expected, not cherished. The woman stops seeing it as a gift and begins to see it as her right. What is abundant is no longer rare. What is constant is no longer exciting. Desire does not thrive in certainty, it thrives in the tension between closeness and distance. Do not misunderstand. To withhold all affection, to act cold and detached, equally foolish. A man who never shows warmth creates suspicion and insecurity, and suspicion becomes poison in a home. A woman must feel cared for, she must feel chosen, but she must also sense that you do not orbit her completely. That your life, your purpose, your strength extends beyond her. It is this duality, affection and distance, that keeps her loyalty strong. Think of the sun. It warms the earth, gives life, draws all things toward it. But if it were to press too close, the earth would burn and die. It is the distance of the sun, not its closeness, that sustains life. Your affection must work the same. Give her enough warmth to grow her trust, but maintain enough distance to preserve her respect. Distance, in this sense, is not physical alone. It is the independence of mind, the preservation of your own pursuits, your own discipline, your own identity. A man who abandons his mission and replaces it with constant service to his woman loses the very essence that made him attractive to her in the first place. Women are drawn to men who have a life that cannot be entirely consumed. When she sees you devoted to your craft, to your health, to your ambitions, she is reminded that your world is larger than her. This reminder breeds both admiration and desire. Now imagine the opposite. A man comes home, and every moment of his energy is directed toward her. He abandons his friends, neglects his purpose, spends his time waiting at her side like a servant seeking favor. At first, she may welcome it, but soon her respect erodes. Why? Because she feels he has no gravity of his own. He orbits her like a satellite, and she knows deep down that such a man cannot lead, cannot stand firm, cannot protect. His affection becomes weakness instead of strength. The wise man uses affection like a skilled ruler uses gifts. He gives it with timing, with intention, not constantly but strategically. He offers it to reward loyalty, to heal conflict, to remind her of his warmth. But he also withholds enough to maintain mystery, to keep her striving for his approval, to ensure that she never fully possesses him. Consider this truth: desire grows in the space between two people. If you collapse that space completely, there is nothing left to reach for, nothing left to imagine, nothing left to desire. By keeping a measure of distance, you allow her to chase, to long, to seek you even when you are present. This chase, this pull, is what keeps the fire alive. So, affection must never be endless indulgence, nor must it be complete denial. It must be measured, deliberate, and balanced with distance. For only in that balance does a woman remain both secure in your love and respectful of your strength. Every wise ruler understands that to fight against nature is to fight a battle already lost. The river will always flow downhill, the seasons will always change, and the storms will always come. A king does not waste his strength, cursing the rain or shouting at the wind. He studies their patterns, he prepares for their force, and he bends them to his advantage. A man who lives with a woman must think the same way. Women are not steady creatures of pure logic. They are waves of emotion, storms of mood, shifting tides of desire and fear. Many men, when faced with this truth, make the mistake of resisting it. They demand predictability. They insist that she act rational at all times, that her feelings remain constant, that her words always match her emotions. But to demand this is like demanding the sea remain calm forever. It will not happen. The sea is not broken because it moves. It is in its nature to move. So the man who grows angry at a woman's shifting moods, who takes her storms as personal attacks, shows that he does not understand the terrain he has chosen to walk upon. He becomes frustrated, bitter, resentful, and in that state he loses control of himself. And the moment a man loses control of himself, he loses command of his household. Anticipation is the weapon of the wise. If you know the storm is coming, you are not shaken when the winds rise. If you know the tide will turn, you are not surprised when the waters shift. A woman's emotions will change, sometimes daily, sometimes hourly. This is not a threat if you expect it. It becomes a threat only if you demand stillness from what was never meant to be still. Consider the general who marches into battle without studying the enemy. He assumes they will attack in one way, and when they move differently, his army collapses. The prepared general studies their patterns, watches their movements, anticipates the traps. And when the enemy strikes, he is already waiting with the counter. This is how a man must approach the nature of a woman, not with resistance but with foresight. Anticipation requires emotional strength. When she lashes out in anger, the weak man reacts with anger of his own, fueling the fire until the house burns. The strong man does not mirror her storm. He lets the wave crash, and when it passes, he is still standing. This steadiness is what earns respect, because she sees that her moods may shake the walls, but they do not shake the foundation. Do not confuse anticipation with submission. To anticipate is not to surrender. It is not to excuse bad behavior or allow chaos without consequence. It is simply to expect that her nature will not be consistent and to prepare your frame so that her shifts do not unseat your rule. The farmer does not hate the winter. He prepares for it knowing it will come. The sailor does not curse the storm. He adjusts his sails and survives. The man who lives with a woman must not hate her changing nature, but anticipate it, prepare for it, and remain steady in the face of it. Think of the moments when a woman tests a man. She may grow distant, emotional, restless, or confrontational. The weak man panics. He tries to fix her emotions. He bends to please her. He sacrifices his authority just to calm the storm. But the wise man sees the test for what it is, a wave. He does not panic. He does not chase. He does not surrender. He lets her emotion pass while standing firm in his own. And when the wave is gone, she looks at him differently, with more respect than before. Nature cannot be fought, but it can be mastered through foresight. And mastery is not about controlling her. It is about controlling yourself in the face of her. A man who anticipates knows when to remain silent, when to speak, when to walk away, and when to hold ground. His power is not in changing her moods, in ensuring her moods never change him. A ruler who depends too heavily on allies is no ruler at all. His kingdom stands not on his own strength, but on the shifting loyalties of others. And when those loyalties change, his throne collapses. In the same way, a man who surrenders his independence when living with a woman builds his authority on sand. It may stand for a time, but the tide will wash it away. Your independence is your fortress. It is the stronghold that protects your value, your respect, and your identity. Without it, you are exposed to influence, manipulation, and slow erosion of power. Many men make the mistake of tearing down their own fortress when they fall in love. They give up their pursuits, abandon their friendships, sacrifice their ambitions, and center their world entirely around her. At first, she may smile at this devotion. She may even praise it. But deep within, she begins to feel what she cannot always name contempt. Why contempt? Because a fortressless man is a man who cannot be relied upon. He is too dependent, too eager to please, too fragile when pressure mounts. Women may enjoy attention, but they do not respect men who have nowhere else to stand but at their feet. The man who abandons his independence makes himself a subject, not a sovereign, and no woman admires a subject. Guarding your independence means preserving your mission, your resources, and your authority. Your mission is the work, the passion, the purpose that existed before her and must continue to exist with or without her. A man without a mission is like a king without a crown, easy to dismiss, easy to forget. Your resources, your finances, your friendships, your health must remain under your control. Too many men surrender these when they live with a woman, letting her dictate how money is spent, which alliances are kept, how time is used. Each surrender may feel small, but together they dismantle the fortress brick by brick. And your authority, the final wall of your independence, is broken the moment you begin to seek permission for who you are. Consider the castle that opens its gates to anyone who approaches. At first, it seems generous. But soon the guards no longer matter, the walls no longer matter, the castle is no longer defended. Anyone may walk in and claim what they wish. A man who has no independence lives like this. He becomes porous, vulnerable, stripped of sovereignty, and slowly he loses the respect of the very woman he hoped to keep. The fortress must not be mistaken for isolation. To guard your independence is not to wall yourself off from love, but to ensure that love does not consume you. The king may allow guests inside his walls. He may share feasts. He may even open secret chambers to the one he trusts most. But he never destroys the walls entirely. He knows that once the fortress is gone, he has no kingdom left to defend. Living with a woman will test the strength of your fortress daily. She may ask you to give up friendships that matter, to spend money recklessly, to abandon the disciplines that keep you strong. She may not do this out of malice, but out of instinct. To see whether your fortress is stone or sand. If you surrender too quickly, she learns you are easy to sway. But if you hold firm, calmly, without cruelty, she learns that you are a man who cannot be moved from his ground, and that paradoxically makes her feel safer in your presence. Understand this truth: a woman does not want a man who gives her his whole world. She wants a man who already has a world and chooses to share part of it with her. When you live with her, your independence is the proof that you have your own domain, your own crown, your own strength. It is the fortress that keeps you from becoming her servant, the fortress that ensures you remain her king. Men often imagine that harmony in a household is a matter of chance. They believe that if fortune smiles upon them, peace will remain. They hope that if they are simply good enough, loving enough, patient enough, then the relationship will manage itself. Fortune is a cruel mistress to those who trust her blindly. Machiavelli taught that fortune favors the man who prepares, not the man who prays. And inside a home, it is not luck that secures peace, but discipline. Discipline begins with the man himself. If you cannot command yourself, you will never command your household. A man who drifts without order, who wakes without purpose, who indulges in every distraction, invites chaos to sit at his table. His woman sees his inconsistency, feels his lack of direction, and unconsciously begins to test him more, searching for the strength he refuses to display. Without discipline, you become a reed swaying in the wind, bent by every mood, every demand, every argument. Consider the general who leaves his army untrained, believing that luck will protect them when war breaks out. At the first clash, his soldiers scatter, and the battle is lost. Now consider the disciplined general who drills his men, sets order in their ranks, and keeps their blades sharp. Even when caught by surprise, they hold their ground because order has become their habit. So it is with a man and his household. If order is your habit, no storm can destroy your peace. Discipline is not cruelty. It is not the iron fist pounding on the table. Discipline is structure. It is the steady repetition of principles lived day by day. It is showing up to your duties without complaint, managing your resources with foresight, controlling your tongue when anger tempts you to speak carelessly, keeping your body strong and your mind sharper still. These small acts, repeated daily, build the authority that sustains peace. Many men lose themselves because they hope for ease. They want comfort without responsibility. They think love alone will manage conflict. But love without discipline is like a garden without a gardener. Weeds grow, vines choke, beauty turns to disorder. Discipline is the pruning, the shaping, the consistent tending that keeps the garden alive. Inside a home, a woman feels whether a man governs himself. If he is disciplined, she senses it in his presence, in his words, in his steadiness. She knows that even if she lashes out, even if she grows restless or emotional, he will not descend into chaos with her. He holds the frame because he holds himself. But if he is careless, lazy, undisciplined, then his weakness spreads like rot and the home mirrors his disorder. Discipline also means enforcing standards without hesitation. If you declare that something is unacceptable, then it must remain unacceptable every time. If you allow exceptions whenever you feel tired or afraid of conflict, then your words become hollow, your rule becomes fragile. The disciplined man does not bark commands, he simply enforces his standards consistently until they are no longer questioned. Luck plays no role here. Relying on luck is the way of gamblers, not rulers. A gambler waits for fortune to smile. A ruler prepares so that fortune has no choice but to bend to his will. When a man relies on discipline, peace in his home is not fragile. It does not vanish with moods, nor crumble under pressure. It endures because it is built on habit, order, and the strength of his daily choices. Men who lack discipline live in constant reaction. They chase problems after they explode. They scramble to repair damage they could have prevented. Their lives are fires always waiting to be put out. But men of discipline rarely face such fires, for they built their homes with stone, not straw, and prepared for storms long before they arrived. Peace, then, is not a gift handed down by chance. It is the prize of the man who governs himself before he governs anyone else. A disciplined man shapes his world. An undisciplined man is shaped by it. And only the man who holds to discipline keeps his crown inside his own house. So now you see, to live with a woman is not simply to share a roof, but to rule a kingdom of two. It is not love alone that keeps the crown upon your head, but the principles by which you govern yourself and your home. You must establish the frame before you enter, for without it you are already conquered. You must rule through consistency, not loudness, for noise fades but steadiness endures. You must give affection with balance, never smothering, never withdrawing, for respect grows only where warmth and distance walk together. You must anticipate her nature instead of fighting it, preparing for storms rather than resenting the sea. You must guard your independence as a fortress, never surrendering the mission, the strength, and the identity that make you a man. And above all, you must keep peace through discipline, for fortune is fickle, order obeys those who command themselves. These are not rules of romance. These are laws of power, for a man who fails to govern his home loses more than a woman's respect. He loses himself. But the man who rules wisely with foresight, balance, and discipline discovers that peace, loyalty, and desire are not accidents of luck, but the rewards of strategy.